if you allow the technique to rise with you and your enthusiasm for what you're doing stays strong, then it makes it as difficult for the opponent to hit you then as it did in the previous 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes of the fight. Same with your business. If you remain enthusiastic about your business, you will always find a way forward.
In your own words, what is Zanshin, if we talk about Zanshin as the remaining mind or constant awareness? And how do you demonstrate, or how is it demonstrated both after, for instance, the execution of a technique, but also in daily life? What's your understanding?
Zanshin is an ongoing commitment to action. That, for me, is the best description of it. They talk about the remaining mind, and that for the man in the street, the woman in the street, the child in the dojo, it's absolutely meaningless. It's complicated English that really we need to try and remove if we possibly can. But an ongoing commitment or an ongoing determination to action is actually very, very important. Very often, let's talk about opening a business. Okay. So you open a business and you're very excited, and you spend 80 hours a week on this business, and you're excited, and it starts to work, and you're excited. And the business grows, the dojo, the bakery, the butcher's shop, the insurance company. It doesn't matter what business it is. And then you reach a stage where the business is established. And a lot of the things that you do are now becoming routine. The excitement of looking through the books every week and seeing that you'd made a profit for the very first time, that excitement has died a little because you've looked through the books many, many times. If you don't maintain enthusiasm and focus, that business will rise and then it will die. And so many new businesses die not because it was a bad idea, but because the people that started the business lost enthusiasm for whatever reason. Now, let's talk about technique. Let's talk about a fight. Whether it be in the dojo, in the street, doesn't matter where it is. You throw a technique, really strong technique, bang, the technique flies out. If you then turn around, like they do sometimes in sport karate, and they start doing this silly nonsense. And by the way, at the very, very top level, they don't do that. The World Karate Federation don't allow that sort of silly nonsense. But people in sumo, one of the reasons that the recent Yokozuna was not popular with the establishment of sumo is that he used to show joy when he won. Okay. Eventually he retired because if something isn't joyful, why would you do it? Okay. So people lose joy. When you fire a technique, you must position yourself so that if the technique doesn't work in the street, if the technique doesn't work in the dojo, if the technique is not recognized in the dojo, if the technique is not paid in the tournament, if you don't maintain that focus, then it gives your opponent an opportunity to come back at you. If you allow the technique to rise with you and your enthusiasm for what you're doing stays strong, then it makes it as difficult for the opponent to hit you then as it did in the previous 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes of the fight. Same with your business. If you remain enthusiastic about your business, you will always find a way forward. You'll always find a reason to do just a little bit more. And just doing a little bit more is the other way. I talked about Zanshin to kids. Kids, I just want you to be ready to do a little bit more. That's Zanshin.